and then.
Okay.
Also.
Recording is starting.
Pretty long.
There we go.
Recording is starting.
6:30. Calling the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes? Are there
Yes, I
any
did.
changes?
But, Ed wasn't present, but he listed as present.
No, he wasn't.
Oh.
I didn't even notice that.
Well, I had a question. When we were talking about Jean Patton had expressed some concern about pouring concrete in the winter. And there was an answer to her concerns about using.
Yeah, and I got
or something.
Well,
And that's
I
not,
can answer that during the meeting.
that's,
Now,
but it's not reflected here.
Right, that
Right,
was.
so-
I mean, it makes us.
It
look
was-
at
it was answered. The answer was
It was
given.
answered in the meeting.
Okay,
And the answer essentially was that,
They use warm water.
by the time they get to spring, the cost will have gone up more than the cost of.
Right, and that
mixing the
really should be here. 'Cause-
well, yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
can, that's really what it was. I asked that question directly to Breadlow. Said, should we push this off? And they said the increased cost of pouring the concrete in the winter is offset by reduced labor costs because they're trying to keep their people busy.
Right.
So it's really a wash.
And that should probably be.
That should be added.
should be.
I agree.
Because it looks like it's still outstanding and I think it was dealt with.
With those two changes, any further comment on the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes with those two changes.
Second. All in favor? Yeah. Aye. Anybody against? All right, next item on the agenda. From my. Did I see the agenda? I thought I had an agenda item.
We don't have any.
We don't have one.
Oh, no, wait, that's no.
Yeah, that's the last one.
Right. On tonight's budget was emergency services budgets to review. If we would, Chief Neely, would you like to go there? Join the hot seat. We'll get his done. Chief Holland has a few after that, and then I'll say it was my mistake, but I forgot to invite Richard from the ambulance, but there's very few changes in his, and I can explain this stuff.
Okay.
Going through the fire budget really quickly, there's only two line items that really have any major changes. That's repairs and service contracts went from 5,500 to 10,000. There's some comments on the actual budget page if you read those, and I'll let the chief explain those. And then new replacement equipment was increased from $20,000 to $35,000 because of radio program, and I'll let the chief explain that as well. Other than that, it's pretty much a very similar budget, and the cost in the overall bottom line that you see are those two line items.
Well, and really, it is the one line item, the 15,000 on the radios, because the other there's also a line, the clothing line was decreased from 15 to 10. So that really takes care of that other 5 where that line had the increase. The reason for the replacement radios are not to have to do them all at once. And the radios can be replaced incrementally so that, we can keep up with the technology and keep up with, and not have to be looking for repairs and so forth. Don't have any reason to buy more than 3 at a time, and unless we have issues and increased membership, I'm not just gonna go out and buy radios. It will be on a needed basis, but 3 would be what we anticipate trying to do each year.
This shows that you've spent $739 out of your 10,000 or 15,000.
On the clothing line, and again,
Is that,
not gonna spend money if we don't need to, Nancy, and the clothing is typically turnout gear. And if we don't have new members, and if we don't have members that are in need of new gear that's outdated, but I would ask that that number remain the same because the gear does go out of date again over, over the period of time, or we ruin something at a fire, and
How much is a set in there?
right now, a set is about 5,000.
So you're talking 2 sets is what's in there. So,
It's, I
I
mean,
mean, it's,
And
And it's also if you get new firefighters throughout the year.
correct, if we get new firefighters, we do have some gear. But to put, to get a firefighter into the new gear, once they've passed the level 1, that's where they need to be. They've got gear that they can go through the training and get certified with, but it's not the same as getting them into live fire.
During the last meeting, somebody brought up that $5,000 for a radio was a steep price. Can you comment on that?
I have looked at 3 different manufacturers. We have typically stayed with Motorola because their service is in Ossipee. We can go to a cheaper radio, but we lose some of the function if we go out of town, working mutual aid with other departments. We don't have as many channels. And there's probably a point where we are required to have a radio with capacity for grants as well. That $5,000 is probably, I guess I want to say, a medium price. The last radios that were purchased, and I don't know where it was in the budget, I wasn't here, but those were about $7,800 a piece. We don't need those. This is a step down from that.
Okay.
This is to a more typical radio.
Motorola?
Still Motorola. Yep. Yeah, we've looked at Kenwood. In fact, we've demoed some. They just don't have the same capability, the distance, the reliability. Talking with other departments are, typically running Motorola as well, and they're doing the testing, and they're proven. They're a proven piece of equipment.
It's what we used in the Forest Service.
Hmm.
It's what we used in the Forest Service.
it's been a while, but when I was in the fire service, we went to Kenwoods and about 2 years later, we went back because they weren't working.
Any other questions?
I'm,
Good question, Nancy.
well, I was wondering about, do we still have anything down on the old spot where you used to keep boats and stuff? What's the name of this street? Shed Street, yeah. Or
Everything is between Union Street and Enfield Center Street. And I guess, again, looking at some of the lines, yes, some of the lines haven't been spent. But I would ask that they don't decrease because we are looking at a fairly active campaign in recruiting people. And if we get people on those lines, what have we spent? I mean, the clothing lines, the training line, we've spent more money in the last couple of years on training, but the state has also offered free training. So, we try to use as much free as we can. And, yeah.
How many folks do you have now?
It's the difference between how many folks you have and how many folks we have active.
Active, how many folks?
I would say that we're probably in the average of 8 to 10 that are active, and that we probably have about 6 that are really active. And we have about 27 on the roster, but I mean, Ed and myself have discussed in length, and we have some things implemented that hopefully are going to, move some of this along, I guess is.
Can you talk a little bit, just so the budget committee understands that we've made a pretty significant change this year to how firefighters were paid?
Well, doing within the same budget numbers, we've broken it out. I believe it's seven different tiers so that we have a probationary firefighter, a firefighter who's not certified, a firefighter who has level 1, a firefighter who has level 2, officers, chief officers. And the hope is that this is going to encourage some folks to get the training so that it's not all about the money. But I do think that the money has some value in that. But to put it, into their ball court a little bit in how they want to train, where do they want to be in the department? And prior to this, it was just one flat dollar figure per hour for everybody. And hopefully this gives some folks some incentive to, to step up and make some.
Responsibility,
Pardon?
to accelerate and take more responsibility.
I'd love it, yes.
So how many certifieds do we have right now, Bill, who are active?
Who are active?
There we go.
Active certified is different than certified.
That's right, yeah, active certified right now, probably 6, and
Okay.
I'd have to go through the roster.
Okay, so
sure.
your active ones are certified. I guess
Yeah,
is what I'm
yeah,
saying.
but we've got an equal number of certified that are inactive.
Or
too.
inactive, I agree.
Sure. So,
Yeah.
So,
um,
two questions. Those who are, so if you don't respond, you don't get paid, right?
correct.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, people who are on the roster who don't respond still get gear and radios?
They do at this time. Okay, and that's part of, and I don't,
Something else we work.
that's,
Yeah.
and I guess, to go into that to
Because you're
some extent,
essentially
I'm keeping information on every call, on who's on every call. I will sit down sometime in March with each and every member one-on-one for an evaluation. And how can we get you to respond more? And if the answer, quite frankly, comes back, well, I can't do anything more, then I don't think the town should be investing that money and time into those folks. But at the same time, recruitment has to go hand in hand with this so that we, backfill with some more people.
So,
And we did implement some requirements this year that they needed to make minimums.
okay, because it's essentially $8,000 and up just to give people the gear. Actually, 10,000,
Cool.
Well, about
8,000.
8,000. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
A radio-
is
radio
5 and
radio-
gear is
yeah,
5.
about
The gear's
10.
five, so you're talking
About 10,
10.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is gonna sound like a dumb question, but if they don't respond and you just remove them off the roster, you don't really change anything other than you get a radio and gear back.
But that's why we have to have the recruitment
Right, in order, to
in
backfill.
place to be able
But
to
they
get
don't
more.
respond anyway.
right, yeah, I guess if you've got 8 that are active, then the ones who aren't active, you're not gonna.
Again,
I
this-
agree you have to recruit. I
Right,
agree.
I
you have to
agree.
recruit.
I didn't create the whole problem.
I know, I completely understand, completely
So-
understand. But what I'm trying to understand is,
Right,
if
Ideally, what would you need
So
to respond?
Case, like,
Is it a dozen? Is it 14?
you have to recruit, but why, if somebody hasn't responded to a single call for, say, 3 years? What's the hurt of just removing them from the roster?
It's a process that Ed and I felt
Yeah,
that we
working.
needed to
Okay.
work through.
Rather than just do it.
And make it for them to make that decision and not all our decision.
Well, and give them time. And that's
Right.
what we did. We put out those requirements and said, we're going to review this again at this time. If you're not going to be an active participant, then we're gonna have to ask for care back and remove you from the roster. And
Yeah.
if you decide to join and be active again, we can
I
approach.
mean, some folks may have family, you know,
I know,
young kids can't do it
Yeah.
right now, but we're gonna talk about when can you, where,
Right.
you know, where
Right.
can you become active again? How can you become active again? And some of the, you know, that, you gotta remember too, that radio that's coming back is of the same age that's becoming outdated. The gear is probably already outdated.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're getting back quality good.
I
goods.
understand, I fully understand, it
Yeah.
just makes it,
It's
it's
a
like-
process that I think we need to go through to, again, and I'm gonna go back to making it that they're taking responsibility for their own participation.
Okay.
And, I mean, the fire department wasn't built in a day, and it's gonna take more than a day to
I,
come up with a
Right.
plan.
To do it without damaging the overall morale of the department.
That's the
Right.
key.
Doing
I
it
think,
right.
I think it's,
Cause you get into.
I was just trying to understand.
And relative.
but at the same time, you gotta, this isn't, you know, this isn't like, this is their first, you know, job. This isn't their day
Yes.
job. This is, we're asking people to come out at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And sometimes that gentleness, I guess I'll use, you just have to be a little more gentle, but it is my hope that being able to sit down with each and every one, and the ones that don't show up have given me their answer.
Right.
Okay? But sitting down with each and every one and being able to find out where they're at, what are we missing? Maybe we're missing something that we need to do to help them become active again and involved.
I was more fishing if there was an alternative reason, such as we're required to have a team of at least X people,
Oh.
right? I don't know.
I mean, I'd rather have 10 certified active people than I'd have 30, you know,
Yes.
inactive.
Nobody that can go in the house.
Right. I think what you said is, I think it does have to happen by process because there's a lot of hard feelings when you basically fire a volunteer. That's what it boils down to.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you've got to help them see your needs and whether they match. And you find out from them, maybe there is a way they can become active. I mean, so you, that's the
Yeah,
form of recruitment.
And we're
really.
looking at, you know, different, we talk about certified people. Yes, we need certified people. But we also need folks at other layers too of the truck driver who can operate the pump. He doesn't need to be certified, but as long as we know that he's not certified, so that we're not trying to use him someplace else, we can, you know, utilize different people, and that's part of how we're hoping to be able to recruit.
Even somebody on traffic control.
Somebody on
There needs to
traffic
be a
control,
body.
but as long as they're trained
Right.
for their specific,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and, but
So the 7 levels, and do I understand this right, that basically there's an increase in pay for the,
correct.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
For increasing levels and increasing responsibility.
Responsibility,
That's another
right.
thing that Phil added was, you know, when you become an officer, it's not just a title now, it's, you're gonna help train people, you're gonna help do these other things. And
Implemented, this was implemented in March. Implemented that officers would lead our monthly, bi-monthly trainings. It could be their choice. They could find somebody to do the training. They could do the training themselves. You know, numbers of calls, it was a percentage. Numbers of trainings attended, is another requirement. So, and like I say, I have this info right in a binder, you know, so that each person is gonna be seeing that information. This is not gonna be done as a group. I'm not gonna post it at the station saying with a name, you know, only 7%, you know, I don't believe in that. I believe in a face-to-face, and I don't think it does any good for the whole group to have, because then it's just too much small talk, I guess. Everybody guesses already, but I mean, I just don't wanna do that.
Thinking that what you're doing, to me, feels like better way to spend the money. Because you're getting the more trainings, more responsibilities, that kind of thing out of it.
I'm hoping
And
that's.
That does create pride in your work. And that's how you recruit, because people are proud of what they're producing. And so over time, it would be slow. You get a better result for the dollars you spend.
Well, and I think,
feel like that's
I
good.
think too, again, Ed and I have talked about that this is a beginning. I think the new public safety building will be a great selling point for the fire department. You know, look at the facility that the town is giving us. It's giving us this opportunity, and we can, you know, as a recruitment tool, I think it's gonna be, good. Pardon?
Where do you recruit? How do you recruit?
We've done farmers markets, we do it through Facebook, we do it through the town's website. You know, we went
They did the
to,
career.
we went
fair at the high
to,
school.
last week, we went to the career, they did a career day at the high school. We spent the afternoon there with kids, and, it's just, it's a different atmosphere out there.
One of the things I liked
People-
about what you did out there was that you were there with Canaan, as was the police, so they were both there in the building. I think that's a powerful message to your public, because it tells you communities are working together for everybody's,
Everybody
You know.
needs each other, there's
Right.
no,
yeah, I thought it was,
we had a great time.
Any other questions? Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief? So the chief's coming up to talk about his budget. On the one sheet that we gave you, we did want to point out this year on the spending that we approved and spent $51,912. That was not really budgeted, and it also created a zero budget for next year. But, our taser and body cameras were up for renewal coming into this year's budget. With us having less staffing this year, we took the opportunity to just get those ordered and paid for out of last year's budget, so we didn't have to put them into this year's budget. So that's what that number's for, and that was just a management decision as we walked through that, to making sure that that happened. And we weren't taxing for it in the future, that we used money that was already available. So with that, I'll let the police chief kind of just talk through the few changes in his budget, and then we can go through the emergency management budget and those as well, but those are pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, so there's no real, big changes in the budget this year. Just a couple, hit items there that, so we contract our prosecutorial, through the, Grafton County. And so, we're beholden to what they change for, their year, we're on a yearly contract with them. And so it went up, $3,177. But, in reality, my focus is on filling my 2 full-time slots and not my part-time slot that I have. So I just pulled the money out of the part-time because I know I'm not gonna use that $3,000 next year. So those kind of washed each other out. The telephone communication went up. I'm asking for little. It dropped. Yeah, it dropped. That's okay. Yeah, so it's a little, so we changed this year, we switched over to FirstNet and we were able to get a great discount on that. It would have dropped a little bit more, but we changing over to the new phone system impacted that. That's why you see it's over budget for this year, but I'm not asking for that same amount because, some of that was only a one-time cost in that same line. So I believe that the 14,000 we should be fine. Other than that, I think that we're really, I mean, I'm just willing to answer any questions and no other big hit items. Ed already covered the large, there was nothing budgeted in the new equipment line. And then we spent, the 51,900, that was 44,000 of that was the tasers, and the rest was actually, in talking with that, the Ford hit us below the belt after town meeting when they canceled our order for the cruiser and said, but you gotta buy the new one, and here's $8,000 more cost. And so instead of going back to the CIP and saying, hey, can you give us another $8,000? We knew that being an officer down or two officers down, we'd be able to, use taxpayer money that was already there, not have to go back to the CIP and ask for a little bit extra more there. So that was the other part of that.
On the tasers, just so you guys know, we were in the budgeting process and got a call from Taser. And they pretty much just said, we're not supporting the ones you have anymore. You won't be able to buy equipment and there's no software upgrades. And then with that, there's the liability that you can talk about if you want, if we decided to stay with those, but.
Yeah, so Taser, one thing great about Taser is that, one, they're a great tool that we've had, for a little over 12 years now. But when you have when they cancel a product and they no longer support it, you also don't get their legal support. And so, and it's actually, it's not an empty promise. If you go back and you look at Taser, if something were to happen with an officer's use in the town of Enfield and there was some kind of lawsuit for, there's been in the past, people claim that like a Taser caused a heart attack and stuff like that. And Taser actually sends their legal team to represent that Tasers don't cause heart attacks and stuff like that. And it's, that would be a huge legal, burden for the town to kind of pick up just because, we decided to stay with the old equipment that they don't use anymore. And then obviously, as everybody here understands too, if you stay with something that, the manufacturer now says is inferior, we open ourselves up for, did it work? Did it not work the way it was supposed to? So, and to be quite honest, we've all just got the training in the new Tasers and stuff like that. There are much more user friendly and better increased than the last version that we had.
So the cost is through November or is it like October? For the actuals?
This says it was run 11/29.
Yeah, so that would have been the actuals to date.
I can tell you that there's some of these are
To yesterday.
to yesterday.
So,
Right.
so the pay is about 20-25% low. Is that because of the open position?
Yes, we have two open positions
Okay.
and they've been open for almost the whole year.
And out of how many?
Out of 8.
Okay.
The 5%, is that a placeholder at this point?
Yeah, we added 5% to all salaries throughout the whole budget as a placeholder, right?
And to get down into the nitty gritty of it, there's a lot of like some of the smaller lines, the police health and safety, that shows 0, but that's, we do our mental health checkups in November. So I just submitted the bills for that. So that money's spent. But it's well worth the $1,750 we spend every year. We actually were, praised by the National Mental Health Something Association for being one of the first small PDs in the nation to do mental health checkups with our officers every year. And we started about 6 years ago. And so now even like Franklin and other towns have kind of caught on. So that was really neat to get.
So Chief, I have a question.
Sure.
On recruiting public information, you have 1,500 and then you have training 6,000. So the 6,000 on training, is that for existing officers What if you
Yes.
get a new officer on and have to send them to academy?
The academy doesn't cost us anything.
Perfect.
Does that work?
It's, you pay for it in your taxes. Yeah, it's the state, so every agency in the state has to go to one academy for New Hampshire. And so it's, in the state of New Hampshire, it's only,
Well, I knew it wasn't free, I was just
Yeah.
trying to understand.
so it's partially, it's a line item budget for in the governor's budget.
Got it.
So the recruiting of the 1,500,
Mhm.
Is that included like trying to get new officers? Is that what part of that is?
The recruiting and, which one?
Recruiting public information?
So, yes, so recruiting and public information is, the recruiting is yes, right? We advertise, some of that money is like we advertise online, probably 75% of the applications that we get are online through Indeed and a couple of the other ones. And we do the paid portion of that, because if you don't, you
Right.
get buried. We get a steady amount of applications, just 95% of them wash out. And I'll be honest and fair, I'm very picky about who we're gonna hire in Enfield. I think that, being a small agency in a town of Enfield, one bad officer could ruin what we've built over at least my career, and it's just not worth taking the risk on somebody. So we do have, just for everybody to know, we have somebody that's about 95% done the application process right now. They're doing their polygraph next week, and after, that's kind of usually the last stage that you see somebody stumble on. So we're hoping to have that role filled shortly after the beginning of the new year, or that one position done. But and then the other public information, that's like, we host a lot of classes of like scams, stuff like that. We buy booklets that we were able to hand out, and we do, when we do like some community events, like we do the cookie baking and stuff like that, that we use some of that money for that too. A lot of times our Police Benevolent Association pays for it, but sometimes we use, the public information, like when we buy, like I said, the booklets to hand out, when we buy the stickers to hand out to the kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I know in recruiting, it's gonna be very difficult with what some of the surrounding towns are offering to new police officers, so.
It is, but we were just with the select board a couple weeks ago, and we came up with our own recruiting and retention program that I think will hopefully at least, keep us competitive with all the surrounding towns. So
We have a bonus program that we just started as well, but it's not to the level that Lebanon's at. And we're not offering $30,000, but we are
Yeah, and then
offering
I have-
some
I have-
bonuses.
Mixed thoughts about, these sign-on bonuses and.
I was down on the Cape. Each town has got sign-up bonuses for drivers, for plow truck drivers. And they've got big signs out there. You go town for town and they're different amounts. And they get higher and higher the further you go out on the Cape.
it's a catch-22, because
Yeah.
I'm not, this is the first time, and I had said to the select board last week when we talked about the program, this is the first time in my career in 23 years that we've offered recruitment bonuses to non-certified people,
Right.
but it's that catch-22. Everybody's doing it. So if you're not doing it, you're not even looked at.
Absolutely.
And so that's, but again, I'm comfortable with it, because of how picky we are about our candidates. And if they make it to that point of a contract,
Mhm.
then they probably deserve, wherever they are on the scale that we approved for, to come here and work with the town of Enfield for at least 3 years.
Is your possible new certified or not?
No,
Not, okay.
The other thing we implemented was retention bonuses.
Right.
So
Nice. I like
if
that.
our current officers will sign a 3-year contract, then we will give them a bonus to stay.
Yeah,
The one thing we did do with that we didn't do with some of the others, and we did do it with the new ones too, is if they break that contract, they pay back the full amount, not a prorated amount.
Right.
So it's
yeah.
you're committing to the town for 36 months,
Yeah.
36 months.
36
That's
months.
good, okay.
So
Is Hanover doing it?
we're the first ones that
No,
I've
the
heard of
sign-on
a retention. Hanover's doing
Yeah.
a sign-on, recruiting bonuses.
almost everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know a PD right now that isn't doing them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's-
Okay.
The certified ones are bad, like the 30,011, because
Oh,
all
yeah,
they're
that-
doing is we're trying to pay your officer to leave you.
Right.
Right, you're gonna have, you're
Oh, yeah.
gonna be one struggling to find.
Right.
That's my mixed emotions about it. You're just
Yeah,
stealing from each other.
Exactly, you see, yeah,
Exactly.
You know, and it's true because for our sign-on bonus for, you know, on our current program is $20,000, which is pretty much the median of what people are offering right now, right? Lebanon is a high end.
Mhm.
There's a couple down south that are high end, but you're not, and I've talked to a bunch of the, other chiefs and recruiting people, and you're not signing somebody to come up from Salem to come to Enfield that's already certified. Because they can just go 2 doors over and get the $20,000, so they don't have to move.
Right.
So you're just stealing from each other,
Right.
you know, and for 3 years, and then in 3 years, they can go someplace else and get
right.
$20,000 or something like that. And so, but the recruiting bonus for non-certified, state police were actually the first ones that I knew of to do it, and I've talked to their recruiter, and they're seeing great results from it. They went from a pool of candidates that were, you know, oh geez, you know, thanks for applying, to they filled 8 slots in the last 3 months, which is huge, you know, and so, I mean, they have 30 plus slots they need to fill, but 8 slots in just that amount of time, you know, they saw the pool of candidates they were getting. It drew people in that were like, oh, maybe that is something I'm interested in doing. So we're hoping it's gonna do the same thing for us.
What is it? So how do you go? So you go to, sorry, I don't know all this.
No, that's
shit.
fine.
So you get trained at the state level for free,
Mhm.
then you come essentially here.
Well, it's not free. It is,
Right.
it's free, right? In the fact that
It
we
doesn't-
don't pay for somebody
we
to go
don't
there,
pay
but
for
we have to pay their salary and their benefits while they're there.
Oh, really?
Right.
Yeah, so that's our investment. So
Okay,
we invest in just, you know, so we invest in a new recruit before they graduate the academy, or once they graduate the academy, which is 16 weeks long. So we're paying their salary, their benefits for 16 weeks. Plus it's about $3,000 just for the initial equipment, uniforms, stuff like that, right?
so then have to get certified.
So then they go for 16 weeks, they get certified. They come out of the academy. We have a 12-week program on our own. It's called field training. Right? So
Okay.
we're there one-on-one with an officer at all times for 12 weeks.
Okay.
Then they're out on their own,
Got it.
right? So we're at 28 weeks before they're actually useful, you know, to the town. Now, we also know it takes probably an additional 6 to 12 months for an officer to develop who they're gonna be as a police officer. So the minimum investment that we have in a person while they graduate the academy is over $30,000.
Got it.
That's the minimum. The average cost to get an officer, what we call, to be town ready, right? That they can handle most of the situations without, you know, because that is a little over $75,000. So when we lose an officer, we lose $75,000, walks out the door. That's why paying $10,000 as a retention for somebody to sign a 36-month, that's a huge savings to the town for somebody to commit for 36 months. You know, to pay an officer $20,000 who's certified to come in, we're already saving $10,000 off the top because we don't have to send somebody to the academy, stuff like that. And they're ready. Their FTO isn't typically 12 weeks. Their FTO is like 6 weeks, something like that usually. And so that's why everybody's willing to throw 20,000, 30,000 out there because, you know, as long as you get the right candidate in, you're saving the town a huge amount of money.
That's why we thought the retention program was important as well, because, I mean,
Right.
they walk away and you're $75,000 at home.
With the retention too, because you've got the institutional knowledge, you've got, you know, like you said, when you take somebody new to Enfield, you know, they don't know, you know, the residents, they don't know the areas, the streets, you know, the whole layout of the town.
Absolutely.
You know, when you get an officer that's been here and knows all that, it's certainly worth hanging on to them.
Well, and I can tell you, talking to my officers now that the program's been approved, I've talking to them. It's a morale boost to them just to know that the town and the administration are thinking about them like, hey, we don't want you to go someplace. It's not because I don't want to have to bring somebody else in training. You're an asset to the town. You know the people in town, you know the streets, you know the pulse of the town, you know, especially the officers that we have now. So.
All right, thank you.
So with that, just so you know, we're of course, this year, the one we're doing, we're funding out of the excess from the salaries that we didn't spend. We're gonna be working with the select board to set up a fund, and then what our plan is to go to town meeting and ask for the money from those excess officers that fall in the fund balance. A portion of that we put right back into that fund to fund this program. So it's not an additional cost, but it is, fun, of course, but
So we'll have its own warrant article.
yeah, we'll have to be able to fund that reserve if the select board decides to set that up. And
Okay. Right. Good.
Everybody else, anything, any other questions? about
Yeah,
that?
I do have one question. Is it a regional shortage? You said towns are stealing from each other, or is it really a very general shortage?
It's a national,
It's a national.
it's a national shortage.
So why does no one want to be a dentist or a nurse or all these different professions where there's a shortage?
Oh, that'd take a lot longer than everybody wants to stay here tonight, as far as law enforcement anyway. But it's, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, mine anyway.
Yeah.
New Hampshire changed the retirement system, about, in 2011. And New Hampshire went from a very good retirement system that attracted young people to it, right? It was a 20-year, 45 years old retirement, and they added years and time on. And made a whole bunch of other changes that didn't make it as appealing to people. And then just look what's happened nationally over the last 5 years for law enforcement, the light that law enforcement, sometimes we put ourselves in it, sometimes, we didn't, but it affects everybody. And so,
Well, in the political climate, it's government in general, people are not applying. Yeah. With the national politics and things going on, people just don't want anything to do with it.
And baby boomers are retiring and they're the biggest generation.
it's, the last statistic I think I saw was four police officers retire to every one that comes into the profession right now. And that doesn't include the ones that work.
Right, and the pre-2011s were able to retire at 45.
Right.
So-
Yeah,
And you can't fill them. You're one of them,
He's
right?
saying-
I'm one of them. I'm,
That's what I mean, and you can't fill it fast enough because that was a pretty large group.
Somebody's saying.
it's not.
That was a pretty large group,
It is. It is. And
which is why there's 30 spots at the state police.
absolutely, it is.
Because a lot of those were also town and city
Well,
before they were state police.
and to be fair, and to kind of throw this out, because this is actually the right people to throw this out to too, is when I, go back to 23 years ago when I started in law enforcement, the retirement system was great, but also municipalities, and the state, your benefits, your pay wasn't as good, but your benefits were super robust. And over the last 20 years, especially the last 12, municipalities, our benefits have come much more in line with private sector.
Right.
And so, it used to be, just give you an example, and I'm not saying, I being in management now, I see the cost, right? So I'm not saying, but, I go back to when I was a young patrol officer, I paid zero for my health benefits. And no copay,
Oh, yeah.
no nothing, and then now we're still better than the private sector, but it's much closer than it used to be. And so when you get that much closer, somebody compares like, okay, I think for next year, the average for a family plan for the town of Enfield, I think is like a little over $300 a payday, right? So
I don't.
it's a little over
Yeah.
$300 a payday. So that's $600 a month.
Right.
When you start looking at the private sector that still does pay better than municipalities, and you gotta start comparing them, and it's a much closer look at. And so then people go, it's a political climate. Okay, well, do I want to deal with
Right.
people spitting at me or
Right.
people, yelling at me for making a mistake and this and that. And so it's tough to recruit and to be picky. I can't harp on that enough that, we are picky. We've had, how many applicants do you think we've had in total for the open positions? We've had here? Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I'm not saying we're just throwing qualified people out the thing, but if it's,
That's good to hear
Right.
that you're picky.
I'm just not willing to gamble, RPD's reputation and the town's reputation on somebody that's not gonna be a good fit for Enfield. And so,
And as the public sector's benefits went down, so did the private.
Yes.
If you look
Oh,
now,
is it?
private, I mean, you know, just as anecdotal, my sister started at Blue Cross when she was 18 years old. She could retire at 55 and they were gonna pay her, not only did she get pension, they were paying the Blue Cross until they died as a benefit, you know,
No more.
no more, that's gone.
And also, to me, the nature of the public has changed so much that, everybody tries to micromanage a police officer because they got a cell phone. You know,
Right.
and it's tough, it's, you know.
That part doesn't bug us, you know, every officer here assume you're being recorded, but it is harder, you know, law enforcement is not the same as it was 20 years ago. You are part, social worker, part, you know,
Yeah.
police officer, part, you know, part firefighter, part EMT. We're the first ones on at every scene, and so, you know, we encourage our
And
officers to
mental
get more
health.
training in that. Yeah,
You know,
exactly,
I mean,
so.
it's just a whole different game.
All right, thank you.
Yep,
So we go to.
I got two more. So you guys got two more from me, so. They'll be super
I
quick.
got three more with the last one's easy.
Yeah.
And I'll do it for you if you need to, but emergency management is super easy.
Yep, so that one, it's only five, so this year we were, just finished, renewing our emergency operation plan. It's, actually proud of the plan. It came together really nice, a good team put it together. And so, there's $500 in there for training for the departments. You know, the great thing about, you can put together an emergency operation plan and it can be really good and you can put it on a shelf and it can sit there for 5 years until you've got to open it again. And it does nobody good when you need it. And so I believe in training and I believe in making sure that, there's, you know, most people at least understand what their role is if they're not, you know, really good at it. And so, you know, that money will help do that next year. That's it for that one.
Their public safety.
Oh, this one's dispatch, yeah. Yep. So that, again, that's kind of, I guess I wish I could redline it, right? It's one of those things that we can't control the cost of unless we want to spend a couple $1 million to own our own dispatch, you know, but,
And hire dispatchers.
yeah, and then hire dispatchers and have more employees. So, and there are other options. I do explore the other options. I'm not saying there's a lot of options out there. You know, there's Grafton County and then there's Lebanon. Lebanon doesn't want us. Not that they don't want us. They just like, we've got plenty to deal with on our own. And Grafton County is about the same cost and they're not right next door where we have a really good, you know, working relationship. So that's pretty much a, red line item, I guess you'd say, you know, until they come back and give us some ridiculous number that, you know, they all of a sudden they're like a huge spike. I can't really justify trying to change it there. So, yeah, it is. And then animal control.
We decided we're not gonna control any animals. They're on their own.
I'll be honest with you. I don't, you know, in the 5, I think going on 6 years I've been chief now, I don't know. The 2,000 that's in there, I think from 2021 was, it used to be, we pay, Humane Society $2,000 a year as a contract with them. So that we don't have to pay, like it used to be before we had a contract with them. Anytime an Enfield resident went up there and dropped off a cat or something like that, we as a town paid because that's what the state law says. So we have a contract with them now so that we don't, you know, we have an agreement. So that's all it'll cost us. So, but it is a good relationship. We can just go out, you know, when we pick up a dog at 2 o'clock in the morning, we always try to find owners first. Everybody here, I'm sure, is part of our Facebook page. We post it there for, you know, and all the other places. And then when we can't find the owner and we're not taking the dog home with us, it goes up to the Humane Society or something like that. So, but that's not even in there anymore. So I mean, that's in my regular budget now. We put it in the contracted services because it's a contracted service. So.
You won't have room for dogs at the new facility?
Thank goodness.
If you come by the PD on a Friday or something like that, there's always dogs there, so. Also, anybody got any other?
Anybody have a question? All right, Evelyn?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
You.
Ambulance will be really quick. If you look at your one highlighted page, it shows that I reduced, ambulance personnel down from 35,000 to 15,000. What it doesn't show yet, and it will, is the 89,000 that's above will probably go up. What I'm doing right now, we're working with our numbers, but we'll also know by January timeframe exactly how many calls Lebanon ran, and we'll be able to times that by the $345 they charge us, and we'll know exactly what our bill's gonna be next year. So we'll put that in there. So I'm not gonna say all that 15,000 will move up, but it will be more. So we'll move some of that money up. I'm gonna push really hard as we do this budget to make sure that it's at or below what we paid last year for ambulance services.
Are there still plans to do cross training so that maybe firefighters could respond to ambulance?
There are, and we're,
Okay.
select board doesn't know this yet, but I'm probably gonna ask them next year, coming out of town meeting, to create a committee like the MPAC committee to look at fire and EMS services in the future and look at all the different options and make a recommendation on what direction I think we should go. So
Okay, because
I think that's a good project for next year as we're working through things to plan that. And I've had a little bit of conversations with not only firefighters, but Chief Holland about getting the officers trained EMT and putting some kind of, I don't know if I want to call it a bonus program, but some sort of program together to compensate them for that and to compensate them if they will respond off duty to help cover some of those calls. So we're looking at ways to do that. That'll minimize the cost than just paying someone else to come provide service for us.
Because from the numbers, it pretty much looks like Lebanon is handling Enfield's ambulance services.
They're
Pretty much.
doing a lot.
More than 85% of it.
You know,
Is
one
that-
of the things that I've talked with Chief Holland is if we can get some of his officers trained when we'll have run cards like everything else. And if it sounds like a minor call and they can respond, then we'll respond that officer instead of the ambulance right away. And if they get there and we don't need an ambulance, then we don't respond that $345 call. And so we can do some of those things, but
So
if it sounds bad or something, we'll get the ambulance coming. We don't want to delay service in any way.
you're saying it's $350 for a call?
About per call, yeah. I have the numbers if you want to look upon that. I just had Emily send me over what they ran this year. Yeah,
So they respond on average once a day,
Probably.
I bet.
right?
I was gonna say, we
See,
run
around
300 and something calls and they run 80 to 90% of them.
Okay.
All day. I
Is
mean,
this-
that's almost a given from 6 AM to 6
Right.
PM. They're first out. And
Right.
in the evenings, our ambulance will get the tone, and if there's someone available, they'll go. If not, Lebanon comes over.
Is this mainly a problem of recruiting with ambulance, similar to fire, or is this mainly a problem of the calls that are happening during the day when nobody's available?
No, it's a recruiting issue and having people to do that, and, some of it might be the way we're running ambulance, so that's where I think it'd be really good to look at different ways of doing things and see how we might want to run things in the future and what level of service we would like to provide in the town of Enfield.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Safe.
And it is, depending on where the ambulance crew is, it may be faster for Lebanon to get here than our people to respond to the station, get the ambulance and respond to your house. So it's not like you're getting less of a service at that
Yeah.
time. There's a cost associated with it and figuring out what the best way to run ambulance in the town would be.
Well, they staff them full time. don't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
as soon as the
Yeah,
tone
24
comes there, coming out of the station there by the green.
And who knows how far away some of ours may be working or could be on call.
Yeah, or where they live, if
They
they're
probably
responding
go.
at night, they're probably at home.
Yeah.
And then they respond to the station, get the ambulance, warm it up, pull out and go to your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it was me, it's
I would
10
rather have
minutes to that
Lebanon.
side of town and then however long it is to get to your house.
Let alone over to Methodist Hill.
Lebanon will definitely be that respond there.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a big service level discussion to be had moving forward. Something that we need to discuss.
And where they're all gonna be in the facility, it's gonna be a lot easier than cover each other and shuffle.
It definitely could be. There might be some changes on how we want to do things moving forward.
I forgot to mention one request from the public last time was, and as you guys are sitting there, you're probably wondering, what the heck are they talking about? Is it possible to put those on the screen in the future?
Yes.
So that while we're sitting here looking at numbers, they can also see them.
Yeah.
And also for the people on the call, they would also be able to see the numbers. Anything else before we go to public comment?
Not really. I'm continuing to work on the compensation piece, looking at the compensation study and how we want to move that forward. I was talking with Lisa today. I think we're gonna stay with the 12-step matrix that we had. I'm just trying to figure out how we want to do that. If we want to put, you know, a distance in time between some different steps to spread it out a little bit. Or maybe even just move some people sometime through the year to like a half step in between areas, but we'll continue working on that. Looking at it, I've also looked a little bit, but haven't put a lot of number work into what I want to do to move this year, but I'm kind of looking at people that are within 5% of where they should have been, maybe trying to get them really close to where they need to be this year. And a few of the ones that were farther away will work in office and with those people to look at a multi-year plan to get them come back there. So
It is, if we're moving to a stepped plan, is that gonna go in front of the select board?
Yep.
I don't know.
assume
I mean,
so.
we can talk about it.
There's no state law that says we have to do that, is there?
No. It's really an operational thing, but I'll definitely explain.
I'm sure it will be discussed at the select board level.
There's been some discussion in town about moving to, or the whole compensation thing, and I think there's a lot of confusion. And I assume, bad word, but that if a person isn't functioning at the proper level, they don't get their step.
Yeah, no,
There's
that'll
no,
definitely be.
or
part
there's
of it.
merit, there's merit included.
That's part of that.
important to
math.
get over.
I mean, it's not gonna be a pay for performance system. I personally don't believe in that, but if they're not, I mean, if they're not meeting what our expectations are, there's bigger issues than giving them a raise, and they're gonna move towards a needs improvement plan and those types of things.
I just think
So,
that that's,
I mean, that will definitely.
that's some misunderstanding.
I mean, it's not an automatic, but if you have a good eval and you're doing your job and then someone that we're looking at keeping around, then we'll look at giving you a step with your COLA when it's appropriate. I mean, we've been doing that anyway. The problem is we've been lumping it into one, just here's your raise, and there's no program or expectation to go with it. But there were many years that your merit and COLA didn't equal COLA. That's where we slid behind. Then it's always harder to catch up when you're behind than it is to stay close.
Good, thank you.
Right. Public comment? We're gonna be done in less than an hour?
This was an easier
Anything
one. The
else,
next one, we'll have more discussion.
Next is what, DPW?
DPW.
Yeah, you got it.
Unless you want to share that there's now an opening.
Oh, yes, so. Kim resigned from the,
Probably should accept the resignation formally.
yes, do we have to vote on that? Okay, so Tim resigned from the budget committee. So all in favor of accepting his resignation?
I'm just curious why.
Am I allowed to share that?
It was in the email, right?
It was, yeah.
Read the email. It's a public document.
All right. Tim wrote to the town manager regarding the budget committee, and he said, I hereby resign my position as an elected member of the Enfield Budget Committee. The town's elected officials and leadership have become entrenched in a pattern of spending and decision-making that I cannot support. It is very clear that this reasonable dissent is unwelcome. Oh, it is very clear that this reasonable dissent is unwelcome and that the committee will simply approve and promote all spending regardless of impact to taxpayers.
I make a motion, we accept his resignation with regrets.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? All right.
We're gonna post it, or are we going to?
I'll put something in the newsletter, which I did not get out today, to go out tomorrow morning, so to be in there.
Any other business? Anybody in favor of adjourning?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Wow. I remember the days we were hearing from mine.
Yeah.
Well, yes, next time is DPW.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I will
Like just DPW.
That was next time, right?
I think so. That's a
Yeah,
long one,
that's
because
it.
we'll have
That's it.
water, sewer and all that.
Yeah,
in there.
so that's-
So
Oh, yeah.
that's a big majority of the budgets.